I'll be honest, if you didn't come, I totally would have understood. Yeah, because these people have been so hard on you, which I don't get. I really don't. I think ever since you've come into office, things are really looking up. Gas is up, rent is up, food is up, everything.
Comedian Trevor Noah not holding back. Well, I wouldn't quite say that. He took some jabs there, but he was pretty nice the rest of the time. At President Biden handling of inflation during last night's White House Correspondents' Dinner.
But the economy and inflation, of course, not a laughing matter, as new polls show trust in Republicans significantly up over Democrats, especially on issues of the economy, inflation. 50% for Republicans, 31% Democrats, and almost a 14-point advantage on the economy as well.
Here's a hot take. Trevor Noah was more even-handed and funnier last night than he is on his television show.
That's true.
Here to react, former National Economic Council Director and host of Kudlow on Fox Business, Larry Kudlow. Good morning, Larry. You see those numbers. A lot of issues. A lot of bad, bleeding red, at least when it comes. That's actually a good analogy. Bleeding red, meaning they're shedding voters, and they're all going red, seemingly, when it comes to the critical issues of America.
Yes, well, let me say at the beginning, the cavalry is coming, so things are likely to change. But, I mean, Biden has been clobbered on inflation almost from day one, whether it's gasoline prices or food prices, or spending $5 trillion on his Build Back Better bill, or trying to raise taxes. I mean, none of it makes any common sense. People are scratching their heads, say, well, if gasoline prices are rising and it's affecting my wallets and pocketbooks and family budgets, and my real wages are falling, why are they ending fossil fuels? Why are they waging war against natural gas or oil, or for that matter, gasoline? People are worried. I think they're very afraid of this thing called the Green New Deal, which says in the next 5 to 10 years, we will end fossil fuels, and we're going to replace it with solar, and we're going to replace it with windmills. I have no problem with solar and windmills, but that's less than 5% of our energy. And again, from the standpoint of common sense, people are scratching their heads and saying, how are we going to do this? So with the inflation numbers coming in, we just had a batch of them. The basic inflation rate is now 8%. As I said before, real wages are falling, and actually the economy slipped into negative territory. So it's not a pretty picture. And the Bidens have, they've pretty much been in denial from day one about inflation. They blame Vladimir Putin. They blame, they blame Republicans. They blame disinformation. They blame the man on the moon. It's not a good story for Joe Biden.
So you're making these, obvious, economic and policy, discussion here saying, listen, inflation's up. Why are you doing this to energy? But you're saying people are scratching their head. But it also doesn't make sense from a political point of view. They know that they're going to be the Democrats know they're going to face a tough time in the midterms. So why do they continue to do these things that are so obviously hurting the economy, which will end up hurting them politically?
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, that may be the $64,000 question for the Democratic Party. I mean, look at his polls have been underwater since when? Last summer, I'm going to say, more or less. His economic polls, his inflation polls. I mean, look, people don't like wild spending and wild borrowing and all this money printing by the Federal Reserve. People are smart. They're not dummies. So your question is, well, why hasn't he changed? Why hasn't he pivoted? Why hasn't he changed his senior staff that's given him such bad advice? I don't know the answers to that. I mean, in all honesty, I think it's a very badly managed White House, and I think it's worse. And I think they don't understand if you keep doing the same thing over and over again and you don't make any changes, that's one of the definitions of insanity. I mean, look, what their biggest argument, Rachel, recently, what's their biggest argument? Inflation is Putin's fault, not my fault. But if you look at the polls, people see right through that. They understand that these high prices of food, groceries, gasoline, and so forth started over a year ago. And they know if you spend $5 trillion and you keep spending $5 trillion with only Joe Manchin to stop it, they know that's not a solution. So, he's got a credibility gap and he's got a policy problem and he's got people in his senior staff that don't seem to want to change. Or maybe they're the dumbest political people in the history of politics. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Yet they would have spent more if they could. You said save the country, kill the bill. Thankfully, some of the biggest ones have been killed. And if they'd spent on those, we could have been in even worse shape. I got to get your take on something on the market, though. You know the markets better than anybody. Warren Buffett recently said that the markets have become a gambling parlor. Here's a portion of what he said at his annual shareholders meeting. Wall Street makes money one way or another, catching all the crumbs that fall off the table of capitalism. They don't make money unless people do things and they get a piece of them. They make a lot more money when people are gambling than when they're investing. It's a gambling parlor. Is he right?
You know what? I don't really want to defend Wall Street, but I don't want to defend Buffett either. So I'm just going to say this morning, a pox on all your houses. I mean, I don't know why he had to say that. I mean, look this is a tricky time. Interest rates are going up. The markets are having a big correction. The Dow is off, 950 points on Friday. People are a little worried. Think of this. Well over 100 million Americans own stocks, right? Either through their 401ks or their IRAs or a brokerage account, okay? So why would he be calling it the stock market, names? Why? That causes people panicked, I think. Look, he uses Wall Street for his deals. He's investing in oil companies. I'm fine with that, for heaven's sakes. It's just too simple. I don't know why I think it's this is a time when I'd like to keep people calm. I'd like to keep some confidence in the long run. You know what I mean? Stocks for the long run. Right now, things look bad, and I think the market's got some turbulence ahead of it in the next couple of 6 months or whatever. But in the long run, stocks are a terrific investment. Mr. Buffett knows that. He has said that in the past. I'd like to help people get through this because the cavalry is coming. Common sense is going to prevail in November. And we're going to reverse some of these crazy far-left woke economic policies. So I don't think we should call names. This is a time to be rather calm. And let's help people get through this difficult period.
The cavalry is on the way. Thank you, Larry Kudlow. Great advice to everybody. Stay calm.
You can watch Larry on Kudlow on Fox Business weekdays, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Larry, love having you.
Thank you, Larry.
Great discussion.